Robin has an aging problem. Comics are notorious for not really aging characters aside from specific moments, like when Dick becomes Nightwing or when Jason becomes Red Hood. And that's fine when you just want to tell stories and not think too much about continuity and timelines. But then you'll have moments like this, and then the whole thing falls apart. So my goal here is to take information from various Batman media and put it into my own definitive timeline with years and proper ages. I will also explain my choices throughout the video. And before I begin, I want to clarify that this video is just about Robins. If I feel up to it, I will do another video about the Batwomen and then eventually the whole Bat family. But as of right now, it's just about the Robins. With that being said, let's get into it. Let's start with the first Robin, Bruce Wayne. Why did they decide to do this? We need to start somewhere, and there's no better place to start than the night Bruce Wayne's parents lost their living privileges. Bruce, you okay? Oh God! The Waynes die in 1960, and then in 1970, Bruce leaves Gotham. He comes back in 1980 and becomes Batman, making Bruce Wayne 28 years old. I decided on the 1980s for my timeline because that's my personal favorite era for Batman comics. The 70s and 80s era of Batman had the best artwork in my opinion, and of course both Jason and Tim debuted in the 80s as well, so it was a no-brainer. I debated on having Bruce born in 1939 because, well, obviously, but then my timeline would end in 1988, and that's not ideal in my opinion. I would rather have the majority of Bruce's career take place in the 80s and 90s. So my version of Bruce Wayne was born in 1952. Now that we got that out of the way, I'm sure we don't have to deal with any dead parents for a bit. What was that? 1983. Dick Grayson meets a young Tim Drake, and later that night, the Graysons are murdered. Bruce Wayne takes him under his wing, and then 6 months later, Dick becomes Robin. Bruce is 31, Dick is 9, and most importantly, Tim is 2 years old. So why did I do this? Well, as shown before, Tim is supposed to be 3 to 5 years old when he meets Dick Grayson, and most people can't remember stuff before the age of 3. So that means that Tim would have to be 3 or 4 to remember the events of that night and the moves Dick was performing that night. So if he's 3 to 5 years old when he meets Dick Grayson, that means he's 16 to 18 years old when he becomes Robin. So what's the solution? Is it a good solution? Kinda. DC is already set in an alternate history, so it's not too far-fetched to assume that technology progressed a little bit faster in this universe, especially when stuff like this is possible in 1980. And this. In 1986, Batman meets Ra's al Ghul and begins developing a relationship with his daughter, Talia. 1989, Damian Wayne is conceived. Look at him, he's a bat. 1992, after 9 years, Dick Grayson quits being Robin and becomes Nightwing. Bruce is 40 and Dick is 18. 1993, Batman meets a nice young kid who helps him change his tires. What a good kid. 1995, Jason Todd is betrayed by his mother and... Now here's the important part that I want you to remember. Jason Todd is 14 when he dies. This is important for later. 1996. Tim Drake figures out the identity of Batman and Nightwing and later becomes Robin. Bruce is 44, Dick is 22, and Tim is 15 years old. 1998. Jason Todd is resurrected and becomes Red Hood. Now, earlier in the video, I told you to remember Jason's age when he dies. And here's why. When someone dies, their body generally stops the physical aging process. So that means Jason Todd is 14 years old when he becomes Red Hood because his body never aged. Now, if you were paying attention to my timeline, then you would see that Jason and Tim are the same age. There's no specific reason for this. I just wanted Jason and Tim to be relatively young when they became Robin. But it has been 2 years since Tim became Robin, so that means that Tim is now 17 years old, which means that Tim is technically older than Jason now that Jason's aging was delayed. Whereas in the comics, Jason is noticeably older than Tim. It's an interesting change to the lore, and I'm interested to see your thoughts in the comments. 1999. So this is the point in the timeline where things get a little bit more fanfiction-esque, but stay with me. Batman meets Damian for the first time, and Damian becomes Robin. Tim leaves Gotham to forge his own identity. Bruce is 47, Tim is 18, and Damian is 10 years old. 2002. Tim has been on his own for 2 years at this point, changing identities during this time to see what sticks, until finally returning home to seek some advice from his family family. And then he notices something, an old tape lying around from Bruce's childhood show. Tim sees this and a light bulb goes off in his head. Tim Drake becomes the Grey Ghost at 21 years old. So the idea for this video originally spawned from me wanting to rewrite Tim's story. I realized that the Robin timeline is a bit weird, so then it spiraled into this. But a lot of us can agree that Tim is done dirty in the comics and isn't given his own identity aside from the Robin mantle. And him being the Grey Ghost is a really popular fan theory, one that I really like for a few reasons. It highlights his detective abilities, and to me, it's a perfect way for him to honor his mentor while also becoming his own person. Hence why I wanted Tim to leave Gotham earlier in the timeline. In the comics, Tim leaves because of Batman's death, but I think him leaving Gotham to soul search is also a really great narrative reason. And that leads me to the final date in my timeline. 2005. Bruce Wayne dies and Dick Grayson becomes Batman. And with that, let's round up the final ages for my timeline. Bruce is 53, Dick is 31, Jason is 21, Tim is 24, and Damian is 16. Now, I know this video is about the Robins, but how old is Alfred? Well, Alfred's immortal. If you want more of these type of videos, just let me know. Also, special thanks to Hunker Down Son for letting me use your artwork for this video. I'll have their link in the description. In the meantime, watch this video. YouTube thinks you'd like it.